All right, everybody, welcome back. We're diving deep today, get this, into the whole retail exodus happening in San Francisco.
Exodus, huh? Dramatic.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it. All those big-name stores downtown, they're packing up and leaving. We're talking big-time changes to the city's landscape. Our source material is this really interesting podcast called Retail Exodus, San Francisco's Changing Landscape.
Oh, yeah, listen to that one. Hosted by Andy Vong, right?
You got it. He's
Okay.
a real estate advisor and investor, so he's got a pretty good handle on what's going on.
Yeah.
What really grabbed me was this whole idea of an iconic anchor retailer, one of the big ones, closing down in 2025. They don't name which one, which is kind of a bummer, but still.
Oh, yeah.
It makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, you don't see those big anchor stores closing every day. It's not like a little boutique shutting down. These are the stores that draw people in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like the whole ecosystem is shifting.
Yeah.
So the big question is, why is this happening?
Well, from what Vong talks about, it seems like a perfect storm of economic pressures. Like, he mentions that commercial rent in San Francisco is like way higher than the national average, something like 60% higher.
Oof, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you've got labor costs, which are also higher in San Francisco. It all adds up to a really tough situation for retailers,
Yeah.
especially those that depend on, in-store sales.
Right, because if your costs are sky high just to keep the doors open, it's hard to compete, especially when...
Especially when everyone's buying everything online these days.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know I'm guilty of it. It's just so convenient. But that's got to be hitting brick and mortar stores hard, especially in a city with a high cost of living like San Francisco.
Vong actually makes that connection in the podcast, too. He brings on this retail analyst who says, hold on, let me get the quote right.
Yeah, lay it on us.
Retailers across the country are adjusting to post-pandemic consumer behavior. With the rise of e-commerce, brick-and-mortar locations, especially in high-cost cities, are struggling.
I mean, that just nails it, right? The whole landscape has changed. But this also brings up another interesting point, and it has to do with the whole crime situation in San Francisco. Is that playing a role in this retail exodus too, or is that just like an easy scapegoat?
Vaughn does touch on that, but he's pretty careful about it. You can tell it's a sensitive topic with, strong opinions on all sides. It's hard to say definitively how much of an impact it's having, but it's definitely part of the bigger picture.
Yeah, it's all intertwined. I mean, you can't just isolate one factor, right?
Yeah.
It's everything from the economy to consumer habits to, yeah, even the perception of safety.
Right. And all this is happening against the backdrop of San Francisco's, changing real estate landscape.
Oh, right. What happens to all those empty storefronts? Do landlords just sit around waiting for things to go back to the way they were?
Well, according to Vong, they can't afford to do that. He talks about the need for landlords to get creative, to think outside the box.
So what are they doing? Like offering crazy discounts on rent just to fill the space?
He suggests they need to be more strategic than that. He talks about these mixed-use developments, like imagine spaces where you've got retail on the ground floor, but then apartments above, maybe some office space, even things like, I don't know, a gym or an art studio. It's about making those spaces more dynamic and appealing to a wider range of people.
That's kind of cool, actually, like turning these spaces into more than just shopping destinations.
Yeah. Creating these mini ecosystems where people live, work, and play all in one spot. And I bet that could be pretty attractive for investors too, right?
Oh, yeah, prime real estate in San Francisco, even if it's empty right now.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's going to see the potential there.
Right. Vong talks about that too. Investors looking at these spaces for maybe housing, office space, or even coming up with totally new business models. It's kind of exciting to think about the possibilities.
It really is. San Francisco has always been a city on the cutting edge, right?
Yeah.
Always reinventing itself.
Mm-hmm.
So what's next? Like, what does the future hold?
Well, Vong brings up the idea that cities are incredibly adaptable. They go through these cycles of change, and they always bounce back, but in new and interesting ways. He actually mentions the meatpacking district in New York City. How it went from being kind of run down to a trendy hub for nightlife and high-end shops.
Yeah, I get it. It's like San Francisco is going through this transition right now, and it's going to come out the other side different, but maybe even better. So what about our listeners, right? The people tuning in to this deep dive. What's the takeaway for them? What can they learn from all this?
I think the big takeaway is that we're all part of this evolution, whether we realize it or not. How we work, how we shop, the choices we make about where we live, it's all connected. And these changes happening in San Francisco, they're not unique. They're happening in cities all over the world.
So it's like a global phenomenon, not just a San Francisco thing.
Exactly.
Which kind of begs the question, what kind of cities are we creating? And what role do we want to play in shaping that future? Something to think about, for sure.
It really is. And San Francisco is this fascinating example of how these forces can reshape a city. And it'll be interesting to watch how it all unfolds in the coming years.
Definitely a lot to ponder.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a real eye-opener.
Yeah, this was a good one.
Catch you all in the next one.